directly on the border in many cases, right? So, like along the Rio Grande, we can't build a border down the center of the river. It has to be built on the border of the river, the beach. And then there's setbacks where, you're at least so many feet back, if not quite some distance from the border. If you have a slat wall and somebody crosses and they're technically on American territory, but they're on the other side of that wall and a border agent can hear them calling for asylum, is he obligated to actually guide them to where they can get through to him?
I couldn't answer that.
It seems to me that the whole problem is this whole asylum law that we have that allows anybody from anywhere to claim asylum, and it's unchallenged, and they swamp the system and get in America and get lost.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right on that. Our asylum law, there ought to be one significant change, that you apply for asylum in the nearest country that you're coming from. If you can't do it in your own, the nearest country, like Mexico, you go to our authorities there, our embassy, and you make your asylum request there.
Obviously, in Cuba, they can't do that. So we let them, if they set a foot on American soil, I think that's where this all started from.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult for them to set that foot because it's pretty treacherous crossing.
All right, so, Tim, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. So the Mueller report is in the Attorney General's hands. He is redacting, as is required by law, this spurious deadline that the Democrats set April 2nd, that they wanted everything. Can you update us on what's going on with that?
Well, it's going on as planned. The law requires in a number of issues that you cannot release that information. Issues being any of the grand jury testimony. You can't do that. That's why a grand jury, not simply for this investigation, for any grand jury, there are statements made and immunities given in many cases to the people giving testimony. And so those have to be kept by law. It's not this issue, but by law, they cannot be let go. There are other things that relate to methods and procedures for national security that would be classified information, and my Democrat colleagues all know the law, and we abide by that even when we have committee issues that are classified we can't release. But much of what is in that will be releasable. Attorney General Barr said that he will do that. Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, have passed a resolution calling for its release at its earliest possible time of as much as possible of the information. And there's been no pushback. The President has agreed with that. Barr has said he will do it. But to get 300-plus pages and do the right thing and make sure you don't violate, because if you do, for instance, in a grand jury issue, anyone who has their information let loose could sue for damages relative to that in violation of law. So he's going to do his job. Rod Rosenstein is still there, and I'd love to talk to my Democrats and say, you love Rod Rosenstein when he was working as the acting Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General, responsible for the Mueller investigation. Once he came out and agreed with Barr that there was no obstruction in any evidence in the report given, all of a sudden he's not a good guy anymore.
Yeah, and that's the way they seem to treat Mueller now, too, right? Mm-hmm. They're giving Mueller the stink eye.
But they will keep doing this. Again, this is a Trump derangement syndrome that's going to go on, and they hope, until proven otherwise, until polls show that it's not working, they're going to keep calling for investigations of this, that, the family, you name it. The tax, the thought of having an individual citizen of the United States in a place where the IRS can release their tax information, all of their tax returns, tax forms, that's scary stuff. But this is what is being asked for by the Democrat leadership, and I think in the end, the general public, certainly the president's base, but also independents, are going to look at this and say, this is enough. This has gone way too far. This is not for the good of this country. This is just pure politics, gamesmanship, upsmanship, and we don't like it. So once that starts to show in significant ways, I think Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer will be hard-pressed to let their socialist Democrats that are leading the way right now, the AOCs, the Omars, the Tlaibs, etc., let them continue to frustrate anything that might be positive and helpful for this country moving forward under a Democrat leadership.
Tim, are you aware of this Byron York podcast with John Dowd, the man who defended Trump? Have you been exposed to that at all?
I have not been.
That is
I know.
really good.
I know both of the people, but I have not.
Yeah, I encourage all our listeners Google Byron York, John Dowd, the man who defended Trump. It's 2 podcasts. And John Dowd, he's interviewed by Byron York, but mostly he's just talking the whole time. And he's telling the whole background of how supportive Trump was of what Mueller was doing. That Trump gave him everything. He describes the legalities, like the grand jury stuff, the executives who were talking, and the both sides, the political side versus the legal side. And so the Mueller knew Trump had to complain about the witch hunt at the and there's no animosity there because Trump was giving Mueller all the cooperation. There's no bounds against Mueller's, except the question was, why did it go on so long? They knew last year.
Right. No, absolutely. But again, what we're talking about is a pure witch hunt for political purposes that's going on. And the Democrats were going to make sure that Mueller did not back away, that he was forced to keep on moving forward, even if ultimately he didn't see what was being shown as being collusion in any way, shape, or form. But he took a number of rabbit trails, too, which bothered me. Mm-hmm. Rabbit trails that weren't even part of the original requirement for the investigation. And even in doing that, he found nothing on Trump. And the individuals that were around Trump that ended up being convicted, including Cohen, these were issues not relative to Trump other than the fact they knew him and they'd worked with him in the past, but it wasn't on issues. It was their own personal illegalities. There was own tax problems. And I think possibly one of the reasons they did all of that was to say to any other individual with some great expertise, you better think twice before you sign up to work with Trump, because we could go after you as well. And that is scary. That's almost McCarthyite in the way that it's moving forward.
Yeah.
At the negative impact on this great country by continuing to push down on the president.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of the show there, Tim. So I appreciate you coming on again. And like I've told you, anytime you got something important, you're welcome to come any weekend. You don't have to wait till the end of the month.
Well, I appreciate that. And you just have a good rest of the day, and I'll see if Sue has finished everything up outside.
Now get back to work.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Have a great one.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. And everyone else, have a great weekend.
You too.
And we'll see you next week.